A bit more topic, Viking life and people. So we know the Vikings are well known for being invaders and settlers. However, they were also very, very skilled in lots of different areas. So we're going to have a little look at their life and what sorts of things they did for work, houses, and we'll find out some more. Vikings made their homes, called longhouses, from whatever materials were locally available, and most Viking houses were made of wood, stone, or turf, with thatched roofs. So have a little think about what a thatched roof is. There's an example there. They only use local materials, so things that are available to them around where they were. And walls were often made of wattle and daub, woven sticks packed with mud. Viking houses were just one big room, and during the winter, animals and people would all have lived at opposite ends of the same house. In the middle of the house was an open fire for cooking, warmth, and light, and a hole in the roof of Viking houses would let in light and let out any smoke from the fire. So imagine what that would have been like in the winter months. You've got the fire going in the middle, there's only one hole in the roof to let the smoke out. You've got animals packed into one end and the rest of your family at the other end. I don't think it would have been that pleasant to live. Viking clothes then. Just like their houses, Viking clothing was made from things that were locally available. They didn't have shops that you could go in to buy your clothes. They had to obviously make them. So things such as wool, linen, leather, animal skins, or sometimes even silk were used to make their clothes. They were homemade and designed to keep the wearer warm. Natural dyes from plants were used to add colour to their clothes. They used to wear belts as well, which were made out of material or leather, and pouches, knives, and even swords would be carried in them, so that the wearer had quick access to whatever they needed. Children wore the same type of clothing as their parents. So here's an example of a Viking man wearing some of his lovely homemade clothing. So the cloak is fastened with a pin or with a brooch, and we'll get on to some of their jewellery making soon. The belt there to hang small leather pouches or knives from. Long cloth trousers held up with a sash or with string. A cap made of leather and wool, or wool rather. A long woolen shirt tightened with a sash or a belt as well. And some leather shoes worn with some sort of socks, probably made from wool. And the women wore brooches joined by beads and fastening the tunic that she would wear. There you can see there. Soft leather shoes worn with thick socks. A long tunic or dress made of wool on top of the underdress, and the underdress was made of linen or wool. But obviously they would make all of these things themselves. So then the jewellery, like we've just said, they wore brooches, and the men and the women liked to wear jewellery, such as rings, bracelets, necklaces, brooches. Poor people made their own jewellery from metals such as bronze or pewter, and sometimes they even made jewellery out of animal bones. Rich people's jewellery was usually made out of gold or silver. Have a little think about where they may have got that gold or silver from. Think about the monasteries. There's some examples there, look. So, probably belonging to some rich people. Moving on to everyday Viking life then. So we know that Vikings were invaders, but they didn't do that every single day, all day. So actually, when they weren't invading, many Vikings were farmers, and they kept animals like sheep, cows, chickens, pigs, and they would use those animals to help with their materials. So women spun wool from sheep to make clothes, and they milked the cows to make cheese. And the farmers also grew crops such as wheat, barley, and oats. Those then could be ground into grain to make flour, bread, ale, and porridge, important elements of a Viking diet. The children didn't go to school, so there was no education, but they would help instead with the daily farming tasks, and they learnt about religion and history through stories and songs. If they weren't farming, then other Vikings were craftsmen, so they did things like make plates and cups from wood or belts and shoes from leather, and jewellery was also made by craftsmen from different metals. One definitely important job in a Viking settlement was the blacksmith. Now that person made tools and swords from iron, so he came in very useful rather, when they were about to invade. He would make their weapons. The tradesmen travelled between Viking settlements selling a variety of goods, such as silk, precious metals and furs. So they were visited by tradespeople trying to sell their wares. So that was a bit there about Viking life. Everyday life as a Viking wasn't just all about going into battle. It was about farming and crafting and making. Your task on Purple Mash is actually an extension of Viking life, and it's their alphabet and the way that they wrote using runes. So have a little look at the activity. Your first job is to decode the runes to write down which gods' names, Viking gods' names, they spell out, and then have a go at writing your own name and maybe even a secret message. Have fun! Bye bye!